Hello everyone, and welcome to this big day. We're gonna make some jumbo peonies.
It's a very big day.
So here we are. Enzo's joining us. Say hello to Enzo. He'll be down in a second. So we're going to let you know that we actually have pre-recorded this video. We ended up deciding that it would be much cleaner and crisper to do the tutorial. I mean, we are live here, so right, pinch, pinch.
Yes, we're live.
So we're gonna roll right into the pre-recorded video. The reason being is that we realized that the live would have taken about 3 hours to do, and we didn't want to do that. So we cut it down, made it nice and crisp and clean for you all.
Yeah, thank you to our video team for getting that cut down for us. It did take us 3 hours to make all of these flowers, but we will be doing a Q&A afterwards. So if you wanted to put any questions you have during the video, put a capital Q in the comments and ask your questions, and we will be going over those live with you here after the video.
Right, so during the video, since it did take a while and it will take you longer, the video is only half an hour, it will take you longer than that to actually make your flower. You'll notice that we put in little pauses. We'll say pause the video and go ahead and do this and then come back. If you don't pause those the first round that you watch it, then you'll be with us when we come back live. So that's just a little thing you might want to think about, because you want to be back here live. Not only are we going to answer all your questions about this gorgeous peony, but I also have a little announcement and a little show and tell that I'm going to share with you guys after we finish this video. So we'll also, just to note, we'll have a replay available for you all around noon, so about an hour, in an hour from here. So as soon as we finish, we'll get that up for you guys. So the replay will be available for you. You can watch it again and again all the way through the month of April for free for anybody. So if you have friends who want to make this, have them come join us. It will be available for them, the replay, and then of course it will be available for our members for lifelong. So there we go. Yes. I think that's all we had to say.
That's it. Yes, and remember, if you want to join us for the Q&A, don't pause the video through the first round. Just stay and watch the whole thing through, and then we'll get to your questions at the end.
It's worth it. It's worth just watching it through. And yeah, all right, we'll see you guys in about a half an hour.
See you soon.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our new maker workshop. In this workshop, we are doing a member favorite. You guys have been requesting this one, so we thought we would deliver. This is a jumbo peony that you can put on your wall. Okay, Emily, you would have loved to have this in your room when you were a little girl.
Absolutely. I love the color. I love that they're 3D and take up space on the wall. I think these are just incredible.
They're great for an Easter party, a baby shower. I'm sure you can find a lot of places to use these gorgeous peonies, and they're very easy to make.
This would be a great craft to do with a newer crafter, since they aren't super finicky and they look beautiful no matter what.
Just to give you all some perspective, here is the larger of the three, and then here is the smaller, and you can kind of vary the sizes by how you place them on the board, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's get started. In your kit, you'll get 2 packs of extra fine crepe paper. In the first one, there'll be 2 folds of coral, 1 fold of fern, and 1 fold of vanilla. Then there's a second pack that will have 4 folds of coral. You'll also see 20mm balls, and there's 24 count in the bag, 3 of these cardboard cake plates, and then there's a pattern that you can download and print, and it is actually 2 pages. The tools we'll be using are a pair of regular scissors, detail scissors, a hot glue gun. You can use low temperature if you'd like, and I also like to use these little clips. Then, according to the pattern, I've cut out some of these cardstock pieces. You can either cut them out by hand or on the cutting machine, as we've provided an SVG cut file just for this piece. So I've printed the pattern onto the cardstock, and I think it makes it really easy to go ahead and cut the pattern out. I won't be using any cutting machine for this flower, except, like I said, I did cut this out on the cutting machine. You can also cut them out by hand. These will not show, they're just more of a structure, but it was easy, so I cut them out on the machine. Then we have the rest of the petals and leaves. We'll do that second, but we'll start with the centers of our flowers. In this pack, you can make 3 flowers. So we have 2 of these corals for each of the flower. I'm going to set those aside right now, although we will be using a small piece. And then this will be for our center fringe, and this will be for our leaves and these little fern pieces. We're going to be using almost every single piece of this crepe paper, so try not to overcut, but we want 7 of these pieces, and I've layered 2 strips. And then you can just easily stack them on top of each other. So there is, that's actually 8. We'll have 1 extra. And I like to use the little clips.
Perfect place to use these.
Just clip on your pattern, and then you can, cut on one side, move your clip around, and then cut on the other. And as far as cutting these, the edges won't show, so just use the basic shape. And while you're cutting out those, I'll go ahead and cut my leaves out. This is kind of a funky trick that I'm going to show you of what I'm going to do to use as much of this crepe paper as possible. So I'm not unrolling this. This is how we're going to cut all of our petals and leaves. I'll put the pattern right on the edge, and you can see the pattern says fold. Then I'll use my larger scissors. I'm going to cut from one corner to the other for now, just to make it easier. And use the pattern as the base. You can cut it as large as the paper will allow, because we'll use all of that crepe paper. There's some scraps. And then I'll do the same thing on this side. I don't need that half one.
I'll use that for my last piece.
There we go. If you want to, you can cut your leaves first and then just use the scraps.
That would be a good idea.
That makes sense, because you do want to use as much as possible. So you can see I have extra crepe paper here. I'm not going to cut that off. I'm actually going to just use the shape of the template, and I'm cutting through the whole stack at once. You'll see how it makes it a little crinkly on the edge, but by the time we stretch it out, it will look really pretty.
Adds a little texture.
It does. So those are ready to go. So we have 7 pieces of these little ovals, and really make sure that you follow the grain so you can see the long side has the grain up and down. And then we'll stretch them out just in the center. You don't want to stretch them all the way to the edge, maybe about like a dime size right in the center.
And you want these stretched out 100%.
100%, yep. I want this crepe paper to lay as smooth as possible when we put it over our little spun balls. So I'll take a spun ball. The hole will go straight down, like right onto my finger. That hole we're going to use to put the little petal inside. Now I'm going to take my hot glue gun, put a dab of glue right on the long side here, and then I'll press it around to the back. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So this is the side that doesn't stretch.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Whole side down. And did you put glue on before you placed it? And then you just glue around it like that?
Yeah, just glue around it. And then I'll take the other sides and very gently, so I'm holding onto the top. I have my thumb over the hole here, the hole of the ball, and then I'll very gently just stretch it so that we get as smooth as possible. Obviously you're going to get a bit of wrinkling, but you can make it pretty nice and smooth and even, because these will show quite a bit. Place some glue on the back side, and then I'll just form that to the ball. The other thing you could do on this too, you could just paint them.
That's a good idea.
Right?
I do love the texture of crepe though.
I do. It's pretty to see the crepe on it.
And you said that this side's going to be towards the bottom.
Yes.
So if that side's a little ugly,
it's just fine. Yep. You just want the top side as smooth as possible. You could also use a marker if you don't want to use paint. I would recommend this pretty green color though. It looks so good. It's very springy.
Mine's not very smooth.
That's okay. You can just kind of press it down with your fingers.
Okay. We'll just put that one in the middle.
You could. Make it as, it's not going to be perfect. We will see some wrinkles. Just make it the best you can. See, mine has some wrinkles too.
I am glad I'm using the low temperature hot glue gun because this seems to be pretty hands-on and my fingers are a little wimpy.
I think the low temperature hot glue gun, if you have, maybe a tween or a child who's old enough to use the low temperature, this is such a good project for them. So the next thing we're going to do is take this cute little cardstock and we'll start in the middle, put some glue on the back of one, and we'll place it right in the center.
Good opportunity to use your ugliest one.
None of them are ugly. They're all beautiful. And easy to follow. Just use the pattern and place one on each of the little petal pieces. And you'll place them nice and snug to the center. Also, it's important to make sure that all your holes, you can kind of see through, that they're all facing upward.
I think this is already looking super cute.
And we'll set that aside and let that cool. So the next piece is going to be all that fringe that goes around this cute little piece. And I have one fold of this vanilla, and here's my pattern piece. So I've made the pattern piece. You can cut 3 of these, and it says fold and fold. So that means you just take this piece, you place it on the end, you can line it up and clip it on. And I'll take my big scissors and we'll cut all the way through. So each flower will get 1 of these strips.
And that's 2 pieces in one?
No, I'll show you what we're going to do with this.
Okay.
So ignore the zigzags for now. Just go ahead and cut your 3 pieces. And since we already have 1 flower made, we only need 2 today. But I love how we're using up almost every single piece of crepe paper. There's not going to be any leftovers. So, all right, so we'll do the second one. And then I recommend once you take the pattern off that you go ahead and put clips back on the base. I would say 3-4 clips right on the base just to hold it all together. We are going to do some fringing, but we're doing it a little bit different.
When you say base, you're just saying one side. Pick a side.
One side. Pick a side, either side. It doesn't really matter. Okay, then you can see the little zigzags on the pattern, and this is just a guide. So we're doing a fringe, but we're doing a pointed fringe. So I'll start with cutting a bit off of the edge. And then I'm pointed, but we're going to do it at an angle. And if this is too thick, you can open it up and do half at a time. We are going to twist these, so my little scissors are sharper, so I'll go ahead and use those. And then see how I'm cutting out little triangle pieces?
And is this too thick?
Nope, that will be fine. You can do them a little thinner as you go because we will be twisting these. So don't do big, huge, because then you'll have less of the fringe. You'll make your angles very slight, similar to what I'm showing on the pattern. And you can see that I have about 1 inch at the base. See how I'm going straight down, and then I'm just clipping the edge of this one to make the point again. So I'm not cutting all the way down twice. Does that make sense? So I cut all the way down, and then I'll take and cut a point, and then all the way down again, and then cutting a point.
So it seems okay if these are pretty irregular.
They're going to be irregular, and the cuts will not look perfect, and that's okay because we will twist every single one of these little strips.
That's a pretty good tip. That's saving my wrist a little trouble.
Yeah.
Just cut that point and then cut all the way down.
And if the cuts look a bit jagged, it's okay. The refinement comes when you do the twists. So if you're working on this project with a child, it's probably best that you do the cutting and then they can help you. Here's all my little scraps. You can take these little clips off and then they can help you do the twisting. So we'll open it up. If you want to, you can cut it into shorter strips. You don't have to work off of the whole. and I'll go through each and every one and just twist them with my fingers. I promise you, this is the most complicated part.
Didn't you show me a really clever way of doing this in bulk?
So here's a really quick way to twist these. So I'm folding this up, making sure the base is lined up until I get it into a clump like this. Then I'll run it between my fingers or my hands, roll it between my hands, compressing. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think that looks that bad.
Then I'm just going back and doing a little touch up. And I think the most important is to make sure that the tips are twisted. The tips are really pointed. It does go a lot faster.
Good time saver.
So rather than trying to glue all this behind this, we're going to use a fresh one.
Brilliant.
And then stack them. What I'm going to do is start to glue all of the fringe, and we're just going to do it on one, on one side like this. And as you move it around the circle, you overlap it and fold it just a bit. So I'll show you what I'm going to do here. So I'll just add some glue. You can either add the glue onto the cardstock, or you can also put it on to your fringe. And see how I'm kind of folding it as I go around?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to glue the whole thing on just like that.
And this is the advantage of the hotter temp hot glue gun, is you can work a little slower.
Right.
With the cool temp, you can only put a little bit of glue on at a time.
And move fast. Yep.
And you're just overlapping?
I'm just overlapping.
Get all the way to the end, just keep going?
Just keep going. Yeah. Another way that I was doing it earlier is I'll just put a strip of glue onto my crepe and then move it around that way. So whatever feels more comfortable. And it's okay if it's not all complete, if you have little flaps up,
Yeah.
it will all be pressed onto the flower when we're done.
It looks like a little sea creature.
It does. It also looks like a teddy bear sunflower. You could also use a white glue to add these, but you might want to go a little bit slower and let it dry so that you don't get too much glue and then the crepe will break down.
And are you leaving this gap in the center
Yeah.
the whole time?
You can or not. I mean,
It's nature.
it will just make your fringe longer if it's not. I'm just basically covering where I didn't cut. The closer to the center you make it, then the less of length you'll have, but either's fine. One of the things about using the hot glue gun for this is that you have to have fingers of steel.
That's why I like the low temp. A little less hot on your fingers.
That looks so pretty.
Like a sea anemone. I saved my best spiraled ones for last.
For the center, that's a clever idea.
And we're done.
And we're done. You beat me. You beat me to it. Okay. So then, yours does not have a hole, mine doesn't. It doesn't make any difference. The next thing we'll do though is add a bunch of glue on the back of our little center seed pods. I'm adding quite a bit, and then I'll press it in the middle and just really press it down and let that cool. Then I'll take my fingers and sort of fluff it up.
It's like eggs in a bird's nest.
It does. Perfect for Easter. You can take the whole thing, kind of press it up around. We have one more detail to add, but we'll do that at the end. So I'll set that aside. One for you. And if you want to have the outside, this going against the wall, you can use the white side. If not, you can use the brown. I'll go ahead and put that white side against the wall, so I'll flip it over. Now we have our last pieces to cut. I should have 2 of these for each flower. So I'm doing the same thing where I'm taking my pattern, kind of make sure it's all folded nicely, and we'll do this one at a time since I only cut out one pattern. And I'll clip it onto the edge. I'll use my big scissors for the long cuts. This is a really great way to cut out a lot of pieces at once, and I would not try to cut this on the Cricut or any sort of cutting machine.
Especially when you can just do it in one cut with this extra fine crepe.
Yeah. And then I'll use my smaller scissors just to get some of these details.
And I like that this one's not so perfect. It can be a little bit.
It's a little ruffly, and that's okay. We'll stretch that out a bit.
We'll just add to things.
So I'm saving this other piece because I'll use that, and then let me do this, cut this one, and I'll hand you the pattern. So for each flower, we'll want 16 of these petals, and some of them won't be quite the right size. Pull those out because we'll use that for something else. So there's 1, 2. This one has a bit of a cut on the side, but we might still be able to use that. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, so there's 8. We got 8 pieces from one, and I'll go ahead and cut this one for another 8 pieces. You can see there's a little bit of a cut on this one and this one. We'll go ahead and use those. I'll just trim it off. Same thing, and I will want to use the second half, so save this other half for the smaller petals. Really helps to have a nice sharp pair of scissors, and I think we've been using these scissors a lot. They're not as sharp. I can just cut these by hand, so you can go ahead and do that. So I have 16 complete large petals there. I have a few extras, which I'll use, and I'll just trim off the edge so it's nice and smooth. So now with this leftover piece, I'll place my smaller petal, clip that on, and I'll use as much, start from the top and just use as much as what is left over.
That is the perfect size.
And then use the small scissors to give it some detail. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you have more than 16, that is fine. Use them all. Use every single piece that you have. I'll even use these as small ones because we have a full petal. So we have plenty of petals. We actually have more than 16 of the smaller ones, but I'll use every single one of them. So we'll stack those up and put them aside. So with your scrap pieces, go ahead and cut 7 of these for each flower. And I'm gonna let you do that.
Thank you.
And I love using the clips for them so you don't lose them, or you can just do it by hand.
Okay.
The last piece are these leaves, and since we are divvying them up between 3 flowers, I'll just go ahead and do that. So there's 15 leaves. I'll give you 3 large ones and 2 smaller. And just to kind of keep it even, I'll do 3 small ones and 2 large ones, and then the rest will be for the 3rd flower. So this flower, you know how we start in the center and we work out with most flowers? We're doing the opposite with the petals. So we're starting on the outside and working in, which means we start with our leaves. So I'm just gonna take the leaf and open it up, and then I'll just take the edge and sort of give it a nice ruffle. And you don't really need to stretch anything out. You're just stretching the edge just to give it some texture and ruffle. I'm going to give it a fold in the center so that now we have a bit of a backbone. Add some glue in between, and then I'm going to place it right on the edge. And since I have 5 leaves, these really won't show that much. They're just adding a bit of bulk. And they're peeking into the back. So I'm folding it, giving it a bit of a fold in the center. That gives it a bit more strength. And since I have 5, I'll just sort of space them out. So I'm adding a little bit of glue here, folding it over and then back out. That's an easy way to think about it.
And you're just going straight in?
Yeah, so I'm just gluing them right to the edge. You can always add these after if you wanted to tuck them in or behind, but might as well do them first. So we have this spiral wheel of 5. Flowers getting very large very quickly.
And it looks like you glued those pretty far from the center.
I did, I put them right on the edge. So now I have my stack of petals, and what I want to do is just kind of organize them. You might have some petals that are a lot smaller because of just how the paper was folded, and I'll keep those in a stack together. Those will be the last ones I put on. The smaller ones go towards the center. And at this point, if you've used 2 of these folds of crepe paper, you should have plenty of petals. This won't show, but you see how I've curved off the center of that larger one? Okay, so I have my tiny petals, my mediums, and then my large. And now I'll just start assembling. Give it a bit of a stretch in the center, just in the widest part, to give it a cup. And then we'll ruffle the top edge. Give it some shape.
And about how much are you stretching in the middle? Just
I would say about a third.
okay.
And in a broader way versus too confined. Now I'm making this little backbone by folding it onto itself. And you can see how the folds does help give it some strength. And since I have quite a few petals, I think I'll just work back and forth. So I'll do one on one side, you know, we'll make an X. We'll just start filling it in with as many petals as possible. As I'm adding the petals, I'm rotating them a little bit closer to the center so that they get a bit of a layered effect. And I like to have the leaves peeking out just a bit.
My favorite way to get ruffles is a little bit different than the way that you usually do it.
How's that?
Because I feel like when I just stretch it, sometimes I get little fingerprints. So I prefer to kind of bend it over my finger back and forth and move
That's a
along.
good idea. Yeah.
And then I don't end up getting as much tension points. It kind of gives a little bit more of an even ruffle.
That's really pretty. You'll notice that some of your petals are curling open. When we start layering, we'll open them up and then they'll be tucked behind another layer of petals. That will help keep them open. And we can also add a touch of glue. So right here, this is a perfect example. And just put a dot of glue there, and then I'll open it up and press it onto the petal side. You don't have to do this on every one. You can even go back and do this later. I do a really big, you know, I hold the edges and just kind of stretch the center like that. So it's like a big stretch, a jumbo stretch.
Jumbo stretch.
Jumbo stretch for a jumbo peony.
And you could probably make these in a couple different sizes if you moved them a little closer in.
You could. If you start closer in, your end flower will be smaller. It's nice to have, when you have multiple flowers on the wall, to have different sizes.
Yeah, a little size variation.
A little variation, yeah. So I'm actually just going in and working through my petals, adding a little glue here and again, just to keep them nice and open. So definitely for my next layer, I am bringing it closer to the center so you can still see the petals behind. And I'm almost out of my large ones, so I'm going to switch to the medium size. One thing you could do too is just put glue on the back, and then when you place it down, you can just pinch it, and that will also give you a nice little ruffle and kind of a backbone. So these I'm going to put down first before I start adding little glue touches, because we do want to have them start folding upwards. If you do want to speed things up a bit, you can stack two and stretch them together, and then even stretch the edges two at a time, but glue one at a time onto the flower center.
And definitely a wonderful beginner's craft, since it has a wonderful result, but it's not super finicky.
It's not finicky, and you know, we weren't all that careful to cut them perfectly so they had perfect edges. The edges are pretty rough, but it looks beautiful.
It adds to the texture.
And same with, you know, the stretching. If you overstretch it, it will look great. If you understretch it, you can always stretch more. So there's just a lot of room for play and error and ad-libbing. I guess there's no errors, just playing. So at this point, I'm just looking for spots that I think could be a bit fuller, just for these final finishing petals. And I actually like how they sort of curl around just a bit on the edges. They get a bit tighter versus laying flat like the large ones. I think that it's a really nice effect. I love this! Okay, now I have all my little last bits, my smallest, and I'll just work on stretching and finding some cute places for those. These little tiny ones I'm not folding over, I'm just gluing the tip and placing them in a position that looks pretty good. Since they are smaller, I think the last one should go here. Okay, there's all my petals. The next thing is to take our centers, add quite a bit of glue on the back side, and then place it into the center. You want to make sure all your petals are laying flat so that they don't get bent over when you're placing this in the center. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Okay, now we have our little tiny petals. And I'm going to give the top a bit of a stretch just because I don't want them to lay flat. I want them to have a bit of crinkle. Take your small scissors. You can also use your needle nose tweezers and just kind of poke a hole through the crepe paper so that you have a place to slide these. And then I'll put just a bit of glue in. You can also use the glue point to poke the hole. And then I'll slide this little tiny petal right into that hole.
You make it into a little tube, or do you leave them kind of flat?
No, I just leave them flat. However you want to do it. It's all about the details. And I like them to kind of curve and move so they're not just flat pieces of paper. So if it does tube up a bit, that's okay. If it rolls when you slide it in.
And does it matter which direction these are facing?
No, I like to make sure they're not all facing the same way, so kind of move them around a bit.
Okay.
Some facing each other, and you know, just to give it some variety. You could also use white glue if you wanted to. You don't have to use hot glue. It's pretty nice how they slide right into the holes. The holes are plenty big enough.
Perfect.
So I'm actually filling the hole with glue. That way the paper just slides right in. If you wanted to use a brighter color of pink for these centers, you can. If you have some on hand, but I do like this little matching color.
Cute.
Here we go. And here are 2 of our 3 jumbo peonies. These are actually larger, so you can make them smaller by starting at the center, or you can start all the way to the edge to make them large. You can see yours is a little bit smaller. This one's bigger, and then the one behind us is even smaller.
Perfect.
So 3 will make a really beautiful wall display, or if you're ambitious, you can make a dozen and cover a whole wall. Thank you for joining us for this maker workshop,
and we'll see you at the next one.
All right, you guys, what did you think? Was that a lot of fun?
I think it turned out really wonderful.
I think so too. And as simple and unfussy as they are, they're just stunning. So one thing I wanted to point out to you guys is, again, we're going to have the replay available for you so you can watch it and work along with the replay. And the replay will be available all the way through April. Also, we have a few more of these bundles in our shop, so you might want to snap those up. It's great to have everything in one kit, so go ahead and pop over there, and I'm sure you can put a link so that people can grab those. If you have friends that love this idea and see your flowers and want to make them too, they have the whole month of April to not only grab these but also watch the video.
Yes, and it is such a great one for beginners, so send your friends our direction and they can start crafting along.
Yeah. Yes, I think I'm going to use these for our Easter brunch that we have planned in a few weeks, or a month, I don't know, 3 weeks. All right, so we're going to open it up to questions. Yes, Enzo's still here. Enzo wants to answer some questions. There we go.
All right, so lots of fun comments, and I really enjoyed watching the process. We do have some questions about the glue.
Okay.
What temperature did you use, hot or cool?
So I use the hot glue gun just because that's where I roll.
Yeah, she was using the what is it? The
high temp.
high temp hot glue. I was using the low temp hot glue because I have baby fingers. I don't like burning my fingers. And I remember the whole time that we were constructing this, you're going, ow.
Well,
So I personally found I had no issue with the low temp hot glue, and it was a little easier on my fingers, but that high temp is going to just give you a little bit more malleability and time to work with it. So it's going to be up to your comfort level and who you're working with and crafting with.
And if you do use the low temperature, be sure and not put on too much glue that you have to hurry and do a smaller bits at a time. That would be my suggestion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So do you think the application temperature affects the durability?
Only if it's too cool when you place the crepe on, so it doesn't actually adhere, then it would cause some trouble.
Yeah.
So,
but I think if you're just working in small amounts, that's going to be no problem. So just use a little bit of a glue at a time, stick your petal on or fold your petal, and then move on to the next.
Yeah, and I think I did state this in the video, but you could use white glue if you wanted to. I might suggest something a little tackier if you're working with a younger child or someone working on this, especially on the center here. You could use the white glue, but I would just give it a little more time to dry before you add extra things. Yeah.
All right. How do you think they would look in heavy crepe? It's humid where this person lives. Do you think they would hold up better?
Yeah, you could use heavy crepe paper as well. There's one little tip that I wanted to tell you guys, because we had these setting up on the shelves upstairs and we just hung them behind us a few minutes ago. And so they were laying flat, and when I hung them, a few of them had been bent because we set them up on a shelf when we couldn't see. So what you could do is just get your hot glue gun out and just tack some of your petals together to kind of keep it formed just on the edge, and do it underneath where it can't be seen.
Yeah, and we were doing that while we were constructing it, and I definitely think it helps hold that shape in. Yeah,
it does. So going back to your question on the heavy crepe paper, you definitely could use heavy crepe paper. I'd probably use the extra fine for the center. You could use it heavy crepe paper for the petals themselves. I don't stretch it too much. I wouldn't overstretch because then it will get really formed. I would just let it stretch it about the same as what we do here.
Yep.
So that would be my thought on that.
Send us some pictures. We'd love to see the outcome.
Yes, definitely. That was a good question, though.
All right, so we have a question. How do you hang them?
All right, so the back of having the cardboard on the back, these particular ones,
it's a cake platter, right?
Yeah, it's a cake, but I actually did it backwards because usually I did it on the white. Doesn't matter. This one has a hole, but I believe the ones that we shipped you guys does not. These were pre-ordered. We got them on Amazon, and then we found a better price for you all. I just take and punch a hole. I use my needle nose tweezers or my needle nose pliers and just punch a hole and then run a wire through it and hang it like that.
Yeah.
There we go. So that's how I hung them up behind me. I think adding that wire, if you're doing a big wall display and you want it to be a little more permanent, maybe just a little nail and then hang the wire, and that would keep it really secure.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a good question too.
Okay, here's a question from Yvonne. I have the 10 roll paper. How do I enroll each to use?
Okay. I have it. Okay. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's a good question because they're rolled a little bit different. I would say take the pattern and line up the two patterns, the two petals, how, one would go this direction. Can you see me here? Yeah, one petal would be on the fold this direction and the other one would be on the fold this direction. And line them up, maybe even kind of tape them together, and then just roll your paper back and forth. You don't have to roll it round. You could just go back and forth the same width and maybe clip it as you go.
Yeah.
And then you can use that paper that's in your 10-pack roll. I love it. I love this flower for using up maybe a color that you have a lot of that you don't use as much.
Yeah.
So, and it could be gorgeous in any color. It could be, the dark plums. It could be even the pale yellows or the white. it would be beautiful on all of them.
Yes, definitely. For any season.
Yes. We happen to have a lot of this color, so that's why we made this gorgeous bundle for you guys. And it's also very spring.
And how long are the vanilla centers?
The vanilla centers, well, if you take your pattern, you can actually measure. I don't have the pattern in front of me, and we don't have a measuring tape in front, so.
Give it a guess.
Okay, so
looks like
are you saying long
5 inches maybe?
long
4
this
inches?
way or long width? I'm not sure, but I would just check the pattern. We did use the whole roll, so you're probably asking because you don't have a roll. She's probably asking how long this direction. I think you're asking that direction. Anna, how long is the roll of crepe paper? There we go.
Gosh, why are you putting me on the spot?
I know, because you're the one that works on packaging. So we'll get you the length of the whole roll, but if you have a full roll, it should be. So as far as length, so as far as like these, I mean, just the strands themselves are
3 inches.
Yeah, they're about 3 inches when twisted, so 3.5 total, I would guess.
So she's asking the width.
Yeah. So the rolls, how long are
The width is this way, right?
The width is this way.
Oh.
Sorry, we're gonna look on a package. Did you get that?
I like to think of it as our little bird's nest with the eggs in them. And
Yeah, it does. Very Easter.
Normally I would know this answer on top of my head, but because you used it perfectly imperfect,
Yes.
so I think the width is 10 inches.
No. No,
Or
we're
is it-
not that way.
Oh,
The
I see.
length. The length. It's on the package
Of the perfectly
of
imperfect.
even the regular. So they all come the same. Isn't it like 10 feet or something?
10 feet long.
I don't know if that's true. Do not quote me. Sorry, we can't edit this and get the answer for you in real time.
So if I tell you in centimeters, it'd be really easy because that I can memorize.
Okay,
So they're
what's-
25 centimeter height and 200 centimeter long.
So 200 centimeters long is
So
the
that's
center.
about 78, a little over 78 inches.
Okay,
There we go.
78 inches. All right, sorry that took so long for us to shuffle around. All right, any other questions, Anna?
Do you find that these get droopy over time? If you use a heavier weight crepe, would that affect the droopiness?
They can get droopy a little bit. It depends on if they get bumped. I think
Humidity also.
Yeah, maybe a little humidity. But I think, like I was saying earlier, you can add a little drop of glue here and there to kind of keep it up and keep it fluffy. The reason why I love using this extra fine crepe paper, it's a little less expensive than the heavy crepe paper, and you can, use up your scraps, and it's a really great way to make something super fluffy and pretty without costing so much.
And I've also noticed with this particular project, I know we went over this when we filmed it, but when you start the beginning, the green leaves a little bit more towards the center instead of farther out, I feel like the flower ends up a little smaller in general, and those slightly smaller flowers I do think held their shape just beautifully.
A little more so than the bigger,
Yes,
floppier ones.
so
Yeah.
I think that the if you start the green a little bit more towards the center of that mat, that this shape and size holds a little bit better than the bigger size.
And this was our smallest one, and it did. But again, I think once you have it done and you want to keep the shape, if you see it drooping a bit, just use a little glue and kind of tack it back up, because the petals will support each other.
Yes.
Yep.
Just like we do.
All right, Griffith from Yvonne, 10-inch circles, and the ones we use are 8-inch. How do I cut them down?
You can measure 2 inches,
Okay, wait. So 10-inch circles.
like that.
Yes, for the cake
Oh,
browns.
gotcha. Sorry, that went right over my head. You know what? I would just use them. I think they're fine. Yeah, use the 10-inch. Because as you see, when I show you the back side here, you could have a bigger circle. The 10 will be just fine.
And since
In
it
fact, it
doesn't
would support it a little bit more.
Yeah, and since it doesn't show, it's perfect. And you can cut it down if you need to.
You know what I would do though? Measure out 8 inches on the center and make a mark on the center. And rather than starting all the way on the edge, I would start at the 8-inch mark. So start your petals in, that's it. But I would still I wouldn't cut it down. Yeah. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I think it made great sense.
Okay. Anything else, Anna?
I don't see any more questions, so if you have any, please pop them in for
Yeah,
us.
pop them in real quick. I know I can see that she's scanning through looking for the big cues. So I told you guys we have a little show and tell and announcement. So we are planning our 2nd annual Spring Summit, our Spring Craft Summit next month, April again. And I have it written down here. We are going to run it on April 12th, 13, 14, and 15. So last year we made 3 different flowers from our kits, but they were a little bit of an upgrade. We're doing the same thing. This is not the bouquet, you guys. I just plopped them in here because I finished making these last night. So we are making a new ranunculus, and this is all from the kit, but we're going to change it up a bit. New pattern, so do not use the pattern from the kit. We're making a new anemone, and I definitely think this is our best one yet. I'll show you a couple of them. And we have some new anemone leaves here that I'll show you. And then we're making, this has been fun to talk about, we're making double daffodils.
These ones are my new favorite. I love how these came out.
They're just so fun and pretty.
They're so happy.
Yeah, they are. So we're basically using the 3 kits, but we're mixing it up a bit and just making something that will create this gorgeous spring bouquet. So I'm taking all these flowers. I will have some pre-made things that you can work ahead of time. I'm going to have you guys do some of the greenery ahead of time, and then we will shoot the ranunculus on the 12th, anemone on the 13th, double daffodil on the 14th, and then on the 15th, I'm going to take all these flowers and make a gorgeous bouquet that you can use for Easter or for Mother's Day or any spring event. So that there will be for our members, or if you buy the kits from our shop, we'll give you a code, or if you have one already, we can also give you a code, and you can have access to the videos as well. So that's really fun. We had so much fun last year with the Spring Summit, and we're planning on doing it again. So I was up late last night trying to finish up these flowers. She knows, she saw me. She brought me dinner so that we could have them ready to show off to you guys today. So hopefully you will all join us and make more gorgeous spring bouquets.
Yay!
Yeah. All right. Is there any other question, Anna?
I have a question for Linda, who's wondering if we'll do a photo tutorial.
For this particular?
Let's see, Linda.
No, actually, we will not do a photo tutorial for this. We're kind of done. I think the video is really short, so hopefully you can. Oh, one thing I did want to mention. Yes, okay, we will not have a photo tutorial, but we will have a worksheet, and that should be available to you guys by the end of the day. So the worksheet will go through the steps, and that will help kind of help you remember how to make this.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And you can take notes as you watch the video, add that to the worksheet so that you can be nice and clear when you go to make these yourself.
Yep, there we go. All right, I think that's all the questions. Thanks you guys for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you all for the Spring Summit.
So excited.